With banks often refusing to lend, buying a home in the UK is an impossible dream for many of us.
We just can't get a mortgage, and around here the house prices are so high.
But a few brave, ordinary people are pursuing a radical solution to the problem.
Come on, baby.
Trying to build their own home from scratch.
I am asking whether he thinks I'm stupid or brave.
Groundbreaking architect Piers Taylor and me, Kieran Long, are following 6 self-builders as they take on the biggest gamble of their lives.
I haven't got any option. You've got to do it, you've got to do it.
We'll try to help them create the dream home they've longed for.
Wow.
They need to be clever with their cash and creative with design.
So tell me what your reaction is to this.
I'm quite surprised. I'm quite liking it.
Or you get the whole section of the plane as a ready-made bit of building.
But each has their life savings at stake.
Oh, what have they done?
Little or no experience.
I've got some drawings actually. It's pretty big guys.
And a budget of less than £100,000 to spend.
How much money have you got left?
But it won't be easy.
No point crying over a cardboard cottage.
This time we're in West Wales, where Jane and Andy are attempting to create a home whilst also living off the land.
This has been my dream since I was probably about 16, to be as self-sufficient as I can.
But with a staggeringly small budget of only a few £1,000s.
In terms of materials, I don't expect this roof to cost more than maybe 100, 150 quid.
No plans on paper.
How do you build a house with no drawings? Do you trust that it's going to be beautiful?
Yes, absolutely.
And the elements against them.
I just wonder how they're ever going to make any progress.
Are they attempting the impossible?
Why did I leave that nice house in Sheffield? Central heating would be wonderful.
Most people who take on a self-build are taking on the biggest challenge of their lives. But I'm on my way to West Wales to meet a couple who have set themselves even higher standards, trying to live off the land while they're building the house and to do it with almost no money. Jane used to be a teacher and Andy a chemical engineer. They had a conventional 4-bedroom house in Sheffield, central heating, but they always dreamed of living self-sufficiently.
It's been my dream since I was probably about 16 to be as self-sufficient as I can.
3 years ago, they made that dream a reality. They sold up and bought a plot of land, which they now intend to live off.
The whole process of sort of from seed to plate, I just find really wonderful. I think it's something very, gosh, I can hardly even describe it because it's so deep ingrained in my life.
One of the first things that you notice is that you don't get this chunk of money going into your bank account at the end of every month. And it takes some getting used to.
The land is part of an eco-community in West Wales. Life here is liberating, but also a challenge.
Condition of our planning is to be able to support ourselves 75% of our needs from the land. It's more than a full-time job, isn't it? There's never a bored moment. There's never really a time for sitting down and relaxing.
Not only short on time, they're short on money too. They have a few £1,000s in savings, which they intend to spend on creating a home for life.
We're actually standing on the plot of land on which we're going to build a low-impact timber frame straw bale home.
Well, this is our kind of like our driveway, and this is the floor plan.
But Jane and Andy are setting some tough conditions. They plan to build most of their home using only natural materials from the local area. In theory, it'll keep costs down, but it will also make it much harder.
All these logs that you can see lying around on a frame for the house, the shell of the building might cost £4,500, something like that. You know, it's not a lot of money really, but it's time and effort.
They've already spent a couple of back-breaking months preparing the ground. Having lived on site for 3 years in a static caravan, Jane is craving the home comforts her new home should bring.
I don't want to have this really austere, sort of hard life for the rest of my life. I want to show that actually, we can be comfortable, we can flick a switch and have the light on, we can turn on the tap and have hot water. I want all that, but in a low impact way.
It's a bleak, wet day in West Wales, and I've come to meet Jane and Andy. They want to move into their home in 6 months. It's clear to me they'll need ironclad beliefs in what they're doing to tough this out.
Nice to speak Aaron.
I am. Nice to meet you, Andy. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm Jane.
Nice to see you. And we're standing on the site of your future home. I can see a beautiful view when the weather's a bit better. Probably reveals itself in that direction. But just tell me a bit about what the house is going to be like for you guys.
Certainly the central element of it will be circular, and then square rectangular sections off that.
I think it's important that, some of us try these things and see how it works.
But the other we're not actually, it's not hair shirt time. We are actually trying to design a house that is comfortable to live in, rather than just thinking about, okay, well, we don't want to use fossil fuels, therefore we're going to freeze in the winter and we're going to do this. You've got to think differently about how you do things like that.
But in this case, different means harder. Constructing a frame with felled tree trunks rather than regular sawn timber is infinitely more difficult. They plan to build the walls using straw bales.
So in the summer it's nice and cool in there, but in the winter it keeps the heat in as well, which is great. So it's just the perfect material, really.
And it's like building with Lego as well. So it's
Right. They're quite big blocks, right. So you're hoping it's going to save you some time.
certainly time, yes.
In the coming months, their skills and determination for a beautiful home will be tested to the limits.
This is one you made earlier.
Yes, this is our barn.
They have attempted a build before. They made this rudimentary barn last year. It doesn't conform to building regulations, so they can't live in it. But they did learn some useful lessons.
Wow, this is amazing. Really striking thing about this are these extraordinary lumpy walls we have here. Tell me what's behind this render.
Well, behind that render is hay.
And straw is what's actually recommended for building. People don't recommend using hay.
And straw will be what you'll use.
It is what we'll use for the house. We wanted to try it because it was here, it was in our 5-mile radius, and it's a big experiment to see how long it lasts.
And like all experiments, I mean, I can see a few cracks and I hate to draw attention to them, but I mean, you were sort of learning as you go throughout the build of this.
Yes, which is why really we wanted to do this first.
But as they start the build, I'm worried they'll find it a huge leap from a basic barn to an intricate roundhouse.
I am getting excited, actually. Yeah, this is like, oh my God, we're really going to build a house, kind of.
But there is something else unique about this house. They have no plans on paper.
In a conventional build, very definite plans drawn up, but with an eco thing like this, you're working around the materials that you have, so things can change.
Because we've got no hard and fast picture of what the building is going to be like, it'll change over time. That's part of the fun, really.
Commencing any build without drawings is a massive risk. They're in Andy's head, but Jane's never seen them.
That's it. At the moment we're just laying out the roof, so we can decide where we want to put the posts. Once we've done this, we'll then know how big the central bit of our house is going to be.
Having never seen her future home, Jane is already struggling.
Try and visualise it in 6 months' time.
Alright. Go into, then post there. Yeah, I can't really see it.
That's it.
Without plans or money, and winter approaching fast, I'm worried these relative novices won't end up with a house at all. So I've come to meet architect and seasoned self-builder Piers Taylor. Although used to working on some very radical builds, This approach to a project is way out of even his comfort zone.
I suppose in this country we always conceive and act out buildings in a very conventional way. The materials are made for us by other people. We go to shops and we buy them, and buildings are expensive things that people with skills build for us. But actually, I feel really excited by the idea of a couple going it alone, you know, with minimal skill, minimal money, just going about the building of their own house and living the dream.
And I must say, the last thing that I think Jane wants is to be living in a failed experiment. I mean, it needs to really, you know, come to fruition in a way that's robust and can be a house for life.
You know, I must confess that alarm bells are ringing. You know, there's no drawings. There doesn't appear to be any kind of plan for how they're going to go about this thing. So I worry at the moment that they're going to be able to do this.
We need to encourage them to get a plan on paper and look at how broadening their sustainable ethos could help them to finish more quickly. After 3 years in the static caravan, Jane's had enough.
This is the worst kitchen I've ever had. And it's having lived 3 years now in a caravan. I can't believe it's that long. But 3 years in a caravan without proper washing facilities. We've got a sink and, you know, to be able to have a shower or a bath, my goodness. It's just made me realise as well how much I really need my house now.
But it's 4 months since my last visit, and with just the two of them, progress is painfully slow. Andy is feeling positive.
Making the frames good, and then putting the bales in really quick, and then it's just applying the render or whatever the finish just takes forever.
Today, they're attempting to brace the wall sections of the frame.
There are certain bits where it's quite important to get it right. And so we've got so far, and you can do it with an axe, bash away. But that last couple of millimetres has got to be right, so it fits nice and tightly together.
Andy is far more confident in his woodworking skills than Jane is.
I'm used to pieces of wood that are all planed and square-edged. And, you know, I'm not used to working with wood like this. And a lot of that's going on training your eye to see, you know, and going on intuition rather than measuring. And I find it really, really hard.
These joints will be on show in the finished house. Sooner or later, Jane has to make a cut.
God.
I think she's doing fine, yeah. And it's just that self-confidence thing. When you do something for the first time, you don't want to make a mistake.
Whoa. I'm not sure. Oh. I'm not sure that we've got this one in the right place. Oh, no. That will be sticking out about 3 centimetres. And we've got about 1 centimetre or so in there, which I don't think is good. That moves up. Yes.
Not happy, she starts again. Working with non-standard materials like these makes creating an environmentally conscious building incredibly hard. I've come to one of Britain's most innovative houses to see another example of just why.
This is Stock Orchard Street. It's a house at the end of a fairly unassuming cul-de-sac in North London, and this is the home of 2 architects, of Jeremy Till and Sarah Wigglesworth, who have used it in a way to kind of figure out what kind of technologies work really well for a sustainable building in a city.
This building was created by taking bold risks with materials and trialling innovative techniques. Like Jane and Andy's build, adaptations had to be made to work around the choice of materials.
This part of the building is made out of straw bales. It's insulated with straw bales. This is one of the first buildings to really use straw bales, one of the first modern buildings. What straw bales are tremendous for is insulation, but the enemy of straw bales is moisture and any kind of rain. And so they coat it in a thin screen of plastic.
It's a stark reminder of what impact the weather could have on Jane and Andy's build. Stepping inside, it becomes clear just how well thought out this house is.
What they've got right here is the envelope of the building. It's highly insulated, ventilation works naturally, it's a building that doesn't get too hot in summer, doesn't get too cool in winter. It gets all those basics right, and once you've done that, then you're free really to create the space you want to create. And if you look at the window reveal, you see just how thick these walls are. There's really serious insulation in there. That's keeping the temperature in here really consistent and not losing any heat at all. I also like their furnishings. It definitely betrays an attitude to reuse and to making do with what you can find. This is not a million miles away from Jane and Andy, but perhaps there's a bit more of a kind of pop cultural sensibility here. You can take stuff from an industrial site, from a building site, as well as from the forest. It's about, using what you can get.
Building with materials that don't damage our environment can create beautiful, efficient homes. But the warning for Jane and Andy is the additional time and complication it can bring.
This building took quite a long time to build. It took 4 years. It was anticipated to take 2, so double. The cost was £600,000, which, for the amount of space here, seems to me to be pretty efficient. But in Jane and Andy's terms, it's just another universe.
250 miles away, it's now winter, and 5 months after the build began, there doesn't appear to have been much further progress. Piers has come to site to see if he can unpick the problems.
Well, it's kind of fantastic site, has to be said. I mean, it faces due south, looks across the valley, kind of stunning sights.
Having been unable to study any plans, it's Piers' first opportunity to really see what they're trying to build.
It looks ambitious, and actually it's much harder than it looks. There's a kind of joint, a three-dimensional joint that's been cut up there that someone's really had to kind of think about. And it's quite a complicated thing to do, even to put up a frame that looks as simple as this. I guess if it was my site, I'd want to really quickly get the frame up, get the roof on, and get a covering on for winter, so they can get in an environment that they can actually do work when it's kind of raining or windy or cold. Actually, one does have to be highly organised going about building specifically a low-cost dwelling. So what are they going to achieve by when? How much is that going to cost? How much can they do themselves? So how are they actually just going to go about it in a practical sense to build a house, a beautiful house? Hi, I'm Piers.
Hello, Andy.
Good to meet you. Hi.
On a normal build, the architectural plans come first, and everything else follows.
So how do you build a house with no drawings?
It's really the form of the house is determined by what comes out of the woods, really.
I mean, potentially using a kind of ad hoc method to kind of build is very exciting. It's also, as you probably know, quite dangerous. It's hard, it's hard to kind of predict and preempt. And
absolutely.
And I guess what makes me a little nervous is just the kind of how do you forward plan if you don't quite know what you're building.
This stage is very. It is time consuming, yes, and sometimes you have to redo things.
But how do you know it's going to be beautiful unless you can draw it and judge it and, I mean, do you trust just being able to make it up as you go along? Do you trust that it's going to be beautiful?
Yes, absolutely.
It's tough to share Jane's confidence. Andy's creating a highly complex structure. Not having plans means it's tough to execute, but also impossible for anyone else to come and help them. It's now crucial Piers helps them get something on paper and look at ways to move it on quickly.
The critical thing is finding a strategy that allows you to be in 3, 4, 5 months' time. And I would focus on getting a shell that I could move into and put a roof on reasonably quickly.
As well as the main roundhouse, they plan to build a more simple, oblong structure attached to it. Having already learnt so much on their barn, maybe they should tackle that first.
Actually, what I would do is build a simple barn, but in a way I would do one that you can move into and then finish the other. But I think doing everything all in one go is potentially overly time-consuming. But fundamental to it, I think, should be a construction that's simple and quick, really.
But we've done simple and quick before, you see.
Yeah.
So
With a wet spring forecast, one possible solution could be to incorporate ready-made structures they can simply attach.
I like the idea of incorporating found things into buildings, but quite often the act of incorporation involves a hell of a lot of work.
Well, I think it involves less work than the complex connections that each of these things have. I mean, look at that, looks so time-consuming, that frame, you know. And what you're doing out there is quite a high-skilled thing. I wonder whether there's a way of just slightly rethinking it so things can sit on top of one another and, you know, you can simplify the connections and, you know... The site feels to me slightly kind of abandoned, and I worry about the momentum is slightly kind of waning.
Definitely, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Andy hopes that he will have built the tricky roundhouse in the next few months.
You know, we're sitting looking at the beginnings of a building that I'm hearing you're going to be living in by March.
We're not going to be living in there by March. Andy's being very optimistic.
Yes.
I think the thing is, I'm just, like you, I share all those concerns about the time scale and, you know, a lot of this kind of the ways and means of doing it are in Andy's head, but that's not being really necessarily translated to me.
They don't agree on a completion date or what will go into it. Life is fairly basic at the eco-village. There's no main sewerage, so they've been using an outdoor loo.
At the moment we're having the debate about the indoor toilet, and I don't particularly want an indoor toilet. The building regs says I've got to have one, Jane wants one, so where are we going to sit with that, you know?
It's called a tree bog, and the reason they're called a tree bog is you plant trees around them, and the roots from the trees and things around it, they'll suck up those nutrients. You're not having to handle it at all. It's absolutely fine sort of using the toilet on a nice sunny day, you know, in the daytime or whatever, but I must say on those cold winter nights, sometimes it's hold it in.
Having not had an indoor toilet for 3 years, it just seems very, very odd to me to go inside to go to the toilet now.
Andy's not quite as positive about those things as I am. He can really sort of put up with, you know, washing in a bowl and the rest of it. And but for me, it's a massive, massive thing.
But unless things progress on site, agreeing where to go to the loo will be the least of their problems. Piers wants to help Jane and Andy make a big leap forward with their build, and has a bold suggestion. He's managed to get special access to one of the world's greatest scrapyards, Kemble Airfield in Gloucestershire. This is where aeroplanes come to die. Some parts, like the engines, are still worth millions, while other components, like the insulation material, are destined for landfill. But Piers believes there are ready-made sections here that could have a future as part of a house.
If you ask Norman Foster what his favourite building is, it's a Boeing 747. It's his favourite piece of architecture. They're incredible things, that they're so precisely built, they're so beautifully crafted, they're beautifully made, they're beautifully engineered. Jane and Andy made some sensible choices today. They could get some finished sections of their building, or semi-finished. It is quite cutting edge. It could be incredible. Hi, Jane.
Piers has arranged for Jane and Andy to meet him.
Good to see you. Hi, Andy. Good to see you. So, here we are, up on the top floor of a 747.
I've been on very few airplanes in my life, and it's very strange.
I enjoy the slight paradox that what you're trying to do is build something out of incredibly local materials that are very low in embodied energy. And there's a very strange issue with being on an aeroplane, which is right at the other end of the scale from what you're doing.
I actually really like that. I did all these. I hadn't really thought of that side of it until we're here. We're sort of having this conversation, but I quite like the two kind of extremes.
Yeah. I'm very keen to use other people's rubbish in the building.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you look at it in terms of embodied energy,
Sure.
this energy's already been spent.
Absolutely.
If they throw this away, we'll take it all off the hands, you know.
Yeah. The insulation I know you can get for nothing. They will fill a skip for it, and it can just be bagged up and taken away. Or you get a whole section of the plane for not a huge amount of money. So a few £100, you get a huge section of this plane that you could use as a ready-made bit of building. There is the whole issue of the loo as well, and you could potentially get this whole loo pod and put it into your house. And where are you on the loo debate?
Let's start with an easy one, shall we?
What is the toilet debate?
Well, he wants to go outside. He likes the idea of this. But I say, look, fine, he can go up to the garden, but we'll have an indoor one. And he's not using it in the winter.
The loo aside, Piers has spotted some other things that could be used to speed up their build.
How about this as your front door?
It's pretty cool, but
If they chose wisely, they could secure a piece of aircraft for a few £100s. It's not just practical, but beautiful too.
So I guess I had this idea that you could take this and put it on its side and maybe even make it your front door
wow,
or something.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Andy wants something to cover part of the roof on his roundhouse. Bradley runs the site and has an idea of what might do it.
We're just looking at the rear pressure bulkhead.
Rear pressure bulkhead.
Yeah.
This is the sort of shape that I'm interested in, and the pattern as well, and just the fact that it's, just the construction of it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this aperture that I've got, and what am I going to fill it with, and it could possibly be something like that.
Taking junk materials that would otherwise go into landfill is perfect for their project, but they will have to pay for some things.
Let's do a deal on the bulkhead. What are we, 50 quid?
I've absolutely no idea.
If we said 250 quid and we cut it out for you, does that sound like a good deal?
Bit low. How much low? 200?
That's as low as I'll go. 200 you get a coffee with it.
I have no clue.
I think it'll answer quite a lot of problems. You're the one who's got the money.
And it's his birthday.
Well, I
Okay,
think-
happy birthday, Dan.
Andy did manage to get the aircraft insulation for free, and a few weeks later it arrives on site.
I do quite like the idea of taking something from sort of fairly high technology thing and putting it into a tatty pile of sticks that we're sticking in a field in the middle of Wales. Just bring on your tat, we'll use it, we'll make a house out of it. That's the idea.
And it's not just materials that are arriving, help is too. As an organic small holding, they can call on a group of volunteer workers called WOOFers, which stands for
Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms.
It's a charity that helps volunteers and organic producers get together.
You contact a host who's got a farm or a small holding, and you do usually sort of maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours, 5 days a week, and you get food and board in return.
So whilst the help is free, they do share their precious homegrown produce with them. During a spell of dry weather, these volunteers help push the build forward, and the basic frame takes shape, but it's as far as they get. atrocious weather arrives and stays for weeks on end.
We've had gale force winds, constant rain, apart from when it snowed. Yes. So it's just been setback after setback in terms of the weather.
They're now not only struggling to build, they're struggling to survive.
Our water supply froze, and we're trying to cut enough wood to keep the fire burning, to keep ourselves warm. So the build is just a small part of everything else that we're doing.
Jane's precious veg patch has been ruined, and the bad weather means she's behind on planting also. The whole small holding is in trouble.
For the first time since probably nearly a year, we had to buy some veg. And then sadly, about 3 days ago, the fox came and had more than half my ducks. And now I'm nursing one duck and he seems to be recovering, but we were planning to eat him, but I just can't bear the thought of doing that now. I'm nursing him back to health. It just feels really wrong. There are times when I do think that. I think, oh, what am I... Why did I leave that nice house in Sheffield, and central heating would be wonderful?
But one thing has changed for the better. Andy has finally had the plans for their house drawn up.
I cried. It brought tears to my eyes. This email popped through. And, oh my goodness, I'm like, wow! And I literally have tears in my eyes.
So at last we can see Jane and Andy's dream home, or at least what they are hoping for. The roof with the aircraft bulkhead on top will be covered with turf, while the straw bale walls will be rendered with lime plaster. Inside, the kitchen, living and dining areas take up the large circular space, while on one side there's a square structure shared by a bedroom and a huge larder they'll need for storing all their homegrown food. Interestingly, on Andy's plans, the loo appears to be drawn outside of the house.
The toilet debate is still going on, and we'll see.
So the jury's out on that, but we're having an indoor one. Oh, yes.
Somebody saying when?
With plans on paper and a break in the weather,
Ready, Simon?
at last they can try to get on with the next stage, putting up the main roof beams.
It's really exciting. I can't believe it. Once the roof is on, it'll feel like a proper building. It's an amazing day for me. I'm just completely overjoyed. It's wonderful.
Come on. Only 23 more to go.
So, if we can get that up, I'll get the full stick.
You got it,
Chris?
Can you hold it there?
Yeah. After months of waiting, it's a big day for Andy too. He has designed a very clever but very complex roof structure. It's what's called a reciprocal roof, and its construction begins with something called a Charlie stick.
The Charlie stick is a temporary feature in the middle there, and that is supporting the initial rafter that went on the first one, and then the first one is then supporting the second one, and the second one supporting the third one. But by the time you come all the way round, they're all supporting each other, and the stick can come out, and that is the moment of truth.
This timber came from their own woodland, which helps keep the cost of building really low.
In terms of materials, I don't expect this roof to cost more than maybe 100, 150 quid.
Oh, that feels quite good.
We nearly have a complete roof. Wow. So now, we need to take this pole out.
Can someone pass the floor?
Moment of truth. I'm sort of like really excited already when they sort of get that stick down. I suppose in theory it could all come down.
I don't even want to think about the possibilities of what might go wrong.
With a reciprocal roof, if just one beam slips, they'll all come crashing down.
And which way do I jump if it all falls down?
Everyone else clears out, leaving just Andy to lower the Charlie stick.
It's coming down.
Also up to there, that doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
It worked! Hey! Thanks everyone.
Against the odds, Andy has pulled off his complex £500 roof. But the good weather doesn't last. With so many factors against them, I'm heading to West Wales to see what's going on.
Jen and Andy are kind of attempting the impossible in some ways. I mean, when architects talk about doing sustainable buildings, they always talk about the need to spend more money, not less. And Jen and Andy have got one of the smallest budgets we've seen for their house. I'm really worried that they can't square that circle.
It's now almost a year since they began, and it's been one of the wettest on record.
Hi Jane.
Hiya!
How are you?
How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Working hard.
You didn't bring the sun with you then.
Terrible weather. It's awful out here, but you still got a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Jane and the volunteers have been doing what they can on site. They're generally unskilled, so it takes time to explain what she wants done. But everything here is dominated by the weather.
Because the weather's been like so bad, so things like getting the timber out of the wood, like we had to wait for the chap who's got the big dumper truck so we could borrow that. And of course on sunny days he was trying to get his work done.
Right.
You know, because it's like this knock-on sort of effect. So
not only is it hard to build in these conditions, but it affects all of the resources that you're hoping to borrow and steal.
The weather has now even caused parts of their experimental barn to collapse. The delays are now putting their future here at risk.
So tell me how far you think you are from actually moving in.
To me it just, I haven't got a kind of sense of an ending at the moment. It still feels like there's just so much to do. I do feel pressure because of the conditions of our planning, and if after 5 years we have not proved that we've made 75% of our needs from the land, then in theory they could just kick us all off and bulldoze the place or something.
Trying to be self-sufficient, trying to generate power, trying to grow food, all of those things are things that we take for granted. Most people take for granted, but you're really you're living really up close to how these things are actually made, and it must be tremendously hard work.
It is tremendously hard work, and particularly when it's cold and we want to be warm. So you've got to source wood, you've got to chop wood, you've got to, season wood, and you've got to forward plan these things. So you need to be thinking about next winter's wood now. You can't just focus on the build. I don't particularly mind that, but I will mind it if I don't have a house to live in. I would really like to be in a house for the winter.
Yeah. I mean, another winter in a caravan.
It's just grim. It's really grim.
It's really difficult to see how they can move forward because they're not going to get a big influx of cash to solve their problems. That's not their philosophy. I think we have to accept, people watching this process have to accept that this is the way they want to live. And if it takes time, then it takes time. They want to be in here, but for them, this is their lifestyle, working on stuff, being self-sufficient. And this is what it means. It means slow, sometimes agonizing progress. It exhausts me to imagine what their daily life is like, maintaining a fair-sized small holding here, animals, vegetables, trying to be off-grid in terms of power, trying to source their own water, sourcing all the building materials, managing a volunteer workforce. All of these things just are just too much, I think, just so much of a challenge. I just wonder how they're ever going to make any progress.
It's hard to appreciate the demands creating a house under these conditions brings. Very few people attempt what they are trying to do. Examples are rare, but they do exist.
Well, this house is a really interesting architectural phenomenon because it's built with sustainable principles, but actually when you look at it, it looks like a quite lovely place to be. It's got these huge picture windows facing this fantastic view, and it, for all the world, looks like a building that's all about enjoying this landscape. But embodied in here are some of the principles that Jane and Andy have been trying to conform to, about sourcing local materials, about having low embodied energy in the production of building materials, and of course having a building itself that's well insulated, that doesn't use too much energy. So it's an interesting combination of eco principles and also a building, I think, that's quite successful for its site.
Located in the Highlands of Scotland, Rowan Garth is a low-cost build. The materials here cost just £80,000. But unlike Jane and Andy, they did make some key compromises in their sourcing.
The owners have decided, well, look, we want a great view, we want a great double-height space lit by these huge windows, and so we're going to have great windows, but you can't source these from within 10 or 20 miles of this site in Scotland. These are windows that are high quality, high performance products, and they've come from Denmark.
These features are way beyond Jane and Andy's tiny budget and don't fit with their principles. But others hint at the beautiful home they are striving for, like the round Douglas fir timbers grown just 300 yards away.
I think the other thing you notice right away in here is the care and attention that's been paid to the details. I mean, of course the timber frame is beautiful in its material, but these wonderful pegs that hold it together and the carpenter's marks that are left here, very prominent. You know, to me tell a story of pride in this kind of construction and the craftsmanship, and I think that adds a lot of character.
There are 700 individually made joints, a decision which cost the owner £20,000 to hire the skilled labour needed. It's a sobering thought for Jane and Andy, who'll be making every joint themselves.
I think for Jane and Andy, and especially Jane, maybe this can give them hope, because you can imagine them too finally sitting in a place that's well insulated, that has nice acoustics, that you can cook and enjoy a meal in, and you still enjoy the landscape, and know in the back of your mind that yes, it's a low energy building.
Jim Monaghan put everything he had into this environmentally conscious home.
People often ask me if I have any advice to a self-builder, and I say yes, well, the best piece of advice is don't.
Right. Is that just because it's just difficult and a tough process?
I think because probably most self-builders completely underestimate the impact it's going to have on their lives, their relationships, their health, their finances.
Creating a home like this will dominate your life, and like Jane and Andy, Jim rarely took the easy option.
The idea was to try to use very low-cost material, namely flagstone that is sold by the ton for use as crazy paving.
And how long did it take you, this intricate pattern?
About 18 months, not all the time, but I averaged about 8 stones a day.
And what for you was the importance of investing that kind of time in a thing like that?
It grew on me, and it became my, I suppose, the piece of the building that I really wanted to put my heart and soul into. And so it turned from being a flaw into being a work of art, if you like.
It sounds like the message is, in a way, not to lose sight of the things that are really personal to you.
Jim expected his dream home would take a couple of years to build.
So this is a really impressive building. It's a beautiful building. It's a lovely place to live. But tell me how long it took you.
Well, we started building the frame, the skeleton of the building, in mid-2004.
Right.
So 9 years ago.
Wow, it took you 9 years.
And we're not finished yet.
This has been a real learning day for me about just what it takes to get through a project like this. I think Jane and Andy's expectations were high about how quickly they might be able to get this thing done. But this building proves that the parameters, the conditions they're trying to conform to are just too much, and that whatever they do, it's going to take them years to get anywhere near finished.
It's summer, and Piers is heading to see Jane and Andy in Wales. It's nearly a year since they started the build, but without significant progress, Jane's going to be spending a fourth winter in that caravan.
Building a house can break you, even if you employ a team of contractors. I've known relationships disintegrate. I've known people go to the brink of madness trying to build a house. And they're trying to live off the land and build a house. With the worst winter I can remember, this is about the first sunny day we've had. Every second is critical. Days like this need to be seized. You need to be working 18 hours with as many people as you can possibly get.
So Piers has rounded up a group of skilled building professionals to try and help move things forward, starting with the floor.
Let's talk about the structure of it.
I've got some drawings, actually. This is as good as it gets. So we've got two options. We can either incorporate the star like this and then run and this is in this direction here, yeah? So we can run these primary or the subframe out straight like that.
Yeah.
Andy's plan for the floor consists of beams which radiate out from a central tree stump. But Piers's team think it's unnecessarily complicated and suggest an alternative.
So we need to simplify it because we don't want to have loads and loads of posts coming into one point because it's just too busy. So we need to make a square.
Yeah. And you won't see this structure either, will you? So it doesn't need to be beautiful. It needs to be quick and efficient.
Yeah, simplicity is the key, isn't it?
There isn't a great stack of timber, so this actually is a very efficient use of material.
Yeah.
It's really good when volunteers turn up who've got skills and stuff, and it can really kind of move it forward. I actually feel quite confident that we can have a floor down by the end of today.
As the timbers get laid out, for once Andy gets a chance to sit back.
Amongst ourselves, we've thought of quite a few different ways of doing it. So we'll just see what we end up with here. And that's kind of, I mean, this is a really collaborative building anyway, so everybody's colours brought something different. It's all sort of on the hoof, so it turns into something that you weren't quite expecting anyway. So, yeah. Fortunately, I've got no fixed ideas about anything at all, so it's quite easy to adapt.
So what we're doing is, instead of building a beautiful but complex structure like this, we're doing a very, very simple structure because you're not going to see it. So there's a pair of beams that'll run across this and a single beam either end, and then we can just lay the joists on top of that very quickly with no cutting, no fiddling around. So Andy, we're going to get the floor down today?
Oh, I think so, yes.
So I've got to get you plumb now.
There's a real buzz about it today, actually, and it feels like a lot is getting done. And it's kind of really, really, really lovely that someone else is doing it.
We've got something that's different to what I envisaged. We'll see how it turns out. But as you can tell, I'm not too precious about things. And we're going to have a floor that's roughly the right height, roughly the right place.
But as it comes together, Andy's less convinced by the design.
I'm just going to be interested to see what it looks like when they've done it, because they seem to be shoving an awful lot of wood down just for the sake of saving a few saw cuts. But we'll see.
Perfect.
By the end of the day, the floor is down.
Jane, I was wondering if you could step up.
If it holds my weight, we're all okay.
Tell us what you think.
Oh, yeah?
It's progressed incredibly quickly, but this simple design is not the one in Andy's head.
It's different, but it's very straight lines, and because I would never have thought putting a double beam in, which has saved a lot of work.
The work today hasn't followed Andy's usual slowly evolving design process. He weighs up the pros and cons.
I tend to fall into the trap of looking at the materials I've got and not have as many supports as we will have to have. And you've done it a different way.
Yeah.
There we go.
Progress or not, and whether Andy decides to alter it or not, the floor is just another part of an overwhelming project.
I'm probably working very, very inefficiently because I'm tired and because sometimes it's a bit miserable on your own.
I suppose I just think of all the other work we've got to do.
It's turned out to be a totally different shape to what I was thinking about at 8 o'clock this morning. Worse or better,
different.
It's just different.
The floor aside, they haven't even started preparing the walls for the straw bales, and the roof is far from complete.
All I can feel is the weight of their burden of this building that's really dragging them down. I can see how desperate Jane is for the house. She needs to be in. This is crushing her. But at the moment, I've no idea when she's going to be in the dry.
Three months later, and summer has come and gone. Piers and I are back in Wales for our final time. They started this mammoth project a year and 3 months ago. They hope to be in by now. Piers is in reflective mood after the last time he was here.
My tendency as an architect is to really try to push things forward. We got the floor down, but this is Andy's baby. He needs to nurture it. He needs to craft every little bit of it at his own pace. And this isn't the project that I'm used to, where there's a strict program and things need to be moved forward.
Hiya!
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
All right. Yeah, really well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes,
How are you doing?
Oh, really well. How are you?
Hi, Andy. Good to see you. How are things?
Okay.
Really well.
You're progressing with the build.
Slowly.
Slowly but surely, yeah.
But you haven't quite hit the deadline though of that you were hoping to with the completion.
No, nowhere near. But there we go.
And Jane,
Yes.
you've obviously been putting in a lot of work
Yep.
here in the garden.
is just abundant.
And you've got a small army of volunteers on site today. And
We've got 4 volunteers, I think, at the moment.
so, Andy, what has led to the delay for completion, and how far behind in your mind are you from where you'd like to be?
I think we're probably at least 6 months behind, I would say, something like that. And what did you say?
6 months, I think, is too optimistic.
Somehow, after all they've been through this year, they've managed to get their vital smallholding back on track. But have they managed to move the house on at all?
So there's loads of change here since I was last here. It's really exciting to see.
They're well on the way to completing that beautiful roof they meticulously constructed.
Jane, what do you think when you see this? Does it start to take a bit more shape in your mind?
I like the beauty of it, and that does excite me actually.
They've covered the timber roof with a fireproof membrane and are insulating it with recycled materials. Then the aircraft bulkhead will cover the central section. They've managed to feed dozens of volunteers who in return have helped prepare the walls for the straw bales.
Presumably this will go up fairly quickly once you have the base in place and once the straw bales go up.
Well, I am a little worried about doing this now in that we're in the autumn and the winter coming.
How long would it take you to get the walls up here, do you think?
A couple of days.
But then you've got a roof, in theory, to put on, haven't you?
You've got to have everything ready. This is what I think. We've got to know. None of this scratching our head and working out how we're going to do it. I need it laid out, like a Lego instruction, really.
But is it tantalising seeing this and knowing that actually with a fair wind, a bit of labour, you could actually be in the warm and dry? Or are you happy, I guess, to just let it take the pace that it will?
I think that's probably an important thing to do now, really.
Let it take the pace?
Yeah.
It feels like it's quite urgent for you, though. Like you're not quite willing to let it just take as long as it takes.
Well, I just want the damn thing done.
It's a testament to what they believe in, that in spite of the added time it takes, they're still using locally sourced and recycled materials all over their building.
So this is the insulation from Kemble, isn't it?
Yep.
It's reclaimed, salvaged from an aircraft.
Yep.
And what are you doing with it here?
So what's happened was that's been stored in bags under tarp on some pallets, and when we came to use it, it's got damp. So this is what's held up now the roof. We thought the roof would be on by now.
I do like to try and find a use for materials that I find,
We're like wombles, aren't we?
Can you tell me a bit about how much you've spent so far on this build?
Less than 1,500 quid on what we've done.
But that's absolutely astonishing. I mean, 1,500 quid, what does that buy you? A flat screen TV or something? And you've got most of a house for it. It's kind of astonishing.
See what you can do when you don't watch TV.
It's absolutely astonishing.
I was expecting this to be a low-cost build, but I was really flabbergasted when they said they'd only spent £1,500. I mean, people spend that without thinking these days. As a champion of low-cost building, I've been floored by this project. I mean, I've really seen what's possible for very, very little money, and I'm in awe of that. So could this take both of us at the same time?
Of course it can.
From the foundations to the roof, this is a build that continues to progress, no matter how slowly, with admirable constraints and values.
So now we're using carpet to make a little envelope for the aircraft insulation.
He needs to obsess over every detail. He needs to work it out, needs to think it through. And this way of going about a project isn't for everybody, but it is for Andy.
But I'm not sure that Jane is as happy with the pace of the build.
It feels relentless at the minute. It's been so slow that we both know that we're going to be building again next year, all year, again the same.
But I mean,
it's like I just want the end of the building to stop.
I mean, how does it feel that now the build has been delayed, so you might not meet your aspiration of being in for the winter?
That's a bit of a setback, actually. Yeah, but we've done 3 winters in that caravan already. I mean, I always thought it was optimistic. Andy saying that we'd be in there by Christmas, and clearly we're not going to be in there by Christmas.
The guy I met in Scotland, he'd said, it took me 9 years and it's still not finished. That was the reality of the process.
I think if I thought that was going to be another 9 years, I might actually go back to Sheffield.
Is there in your mind a threshold?
I think in my mind probably another 2. I think I would be going absolutely crazy if it went on any longer than that. I really do not want it to go on any more than 2 years. So this is my last winter in that caravan.
Right, you're absolutely...
Absolutely, that is my cut-off.
I believe her. Facing a fourth winter in a caravan is a miserable prospect. But I'm not the one she's got to convince.
Looking forwards to the completion of this, because, you know, you can't live forever in a caravan. What was that deadline for you?
That was another 2 years, winter 2014.
You think you're
No worries. Yeah.
Good.
No worries. What confidence. I'm so happy to hear that.
It appears Jane's won that fight, but has made her own decision on another long-standing battle too.
Yeah, we're definitely having an indoor toilet.
So
We'll have to.
we'll have a his and hers door.
But he's never using the indoor one in a snowy winter's evening.
Next time, unable to buy a home in Devon, a young newlywed couple attempt to build their own.
We desperately need the house, well, to start our family in our own space.
They'll need $95,000 for the build.
How much money have you got, though?
60 grand, top whack.
So, there seems to be a problem there.
If this couple fails to do this, it's sending out a message that good quality affordable housing is unachievable.
But how much of a strain will it put on their relationship?
Justin's getting very stroppy, and obviously everything's my fault.
When the build stops going to plan,
It should be watertight, but how's water managed to get in behind that?
are you planning to build the home of your dreams from scratch for less than £100,000? Or even part way through? If so, we'd love to hear your story. Please visit bbc.co.uk/beonashow.
And architect Piers Taylor shares a few tips for budding self-builders on the BBC TV blog. Coming up, gay pride and prejudice in Brazil, Russia and India. Next on BBC Two, Stephen Fry's Out There. And on BBC Four, Medieval Marriage. Dr. Helen Castor discovers how the church sought to control